Satkartar dosto, Assalamu alaikum, Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh, Namaskar, a very good evening to every one of you. My apologies at the very onset, there was a little, I forgot to plug in the hard drive, so here we are. All those who've gotten the link that I sent earlier, you'll have to just look for the new live stream. Today is the 8th of August 2020 and this is the 113th Mēlā of the YaarAnād Virtual Baithak Series. ਦੋਸਤੋ ਜੀ ਆਇਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਤਿਕਾਰਤਾਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬੜੀ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਹੈ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਜੀ ਆਇਆਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ 113ਵਾਂ ਮੇਲਾ ਹੈ YaarAnād Virtual Baithak Series ਦਾ. Today, I'm going to be in conversation with designer and artist TJ Valaya, whose name is synonymous with Indian fashion design, a graduate of NIFT, NIFT. He co-founded the House of Valaya with his brother TJ Singh in the year 1992. His luxury fashion and lifestyle brand specializes in haute couture, especially for Indian bridals. Valaya is among the founding members of the Board of Governors of the Fashion Design Council of India and the first official brand ambassador for crystal behemoth Swarovski. He has been dubbed the Czar of Indian Couture and the Maharani of Kapurthala. Upon visiting his atelier, declared, quote, "You are truly the future of the past," end quote. Valaya is also an acclaimed photographer whose work fuses his passion for visual art and fashion. His exhibitions include Decoded Paradox 2011, Soul in the Space 2013 and Lalaari 2019. ਦੋਸਤੋ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬੜੀ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਹੈ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਮਹਿਮਾਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹਨਗੇ ਉਹ ਡਿਜ਼ਾਈਨਰ ਤੇ ਆਰਟਿਸਟ ਹਨਗੇ TJ Valaya ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਫੈਸ਼ਨ ਡਿਜ਼ਾਈਨ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਟੁੱਟ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਕਹੀਏ ਜੇ ਕਹਿ ਲਈਏ ਤੇ ਸਦਾ ਲਈ ਹੋਏਗਾ. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਾਫੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੰਟਰੀਬਿਊਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਬੜੀ ਵੱਡੀ. ਜਿਵੇਂ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਵਾਰਤਾ ਹੋਏਗੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗੇਗਾ. NIFT ਤੋਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗ੍ਰੈਜੂਏਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਔਰ 1992 ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਵੀਰ TJ Singh ਨਾਲ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਹਾਊਸ ਆਫ ਵਲਾਇਆ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਆਪਣਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਲੇਬਲ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਲਗਜ਼ਰੀ ਫੈਸ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਲਾਈਫਸਟਾਈਲ ਬ੍ਰਾਂਡ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਿਆਹ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸੁਹਾਗਣਾ ਦਾ ਜੋ ਸ਼ਿੰਗਾਰ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਨਾਮਨਾ ਖਾਸ ਖੱਟਿਆ ਹੈ. ਇਹਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਫੈਸ਼ਨ ਡਿਜ਼ਾਈਨ ਕਾਉਂਸਲ ਆਫ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਬਣਿਆ ਸੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਫਾਊਂਡਿੰਗ ਮੈਂਬਰ 'ਚ ਸਨ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੋਰਡ ਆਫ ਗਵਰਨਰ ਸੀ ਉਹਦਾ ਔਰ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਆਫੀਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਬ੍ਰਾਂਡ ਅੰਬੈਸਡਰ ਸਨ ਹਿੰਦੁਸਤਾਨ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਵਾਰੋਸਕੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੀਰੇ ਤੇ ਨਗਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕ੍ਰਿਸਟਲਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਂਝ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਨੇ. ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮਾਣ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ. ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਕੁਟਰ ਦਾ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਕਿਹਾ ਗਿਆ ਔਰ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਣੀ ਕਪੂਰਥਲਾ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਮੇਰਾ ਵੀ ਬੜਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਰਿਹਾ. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੱਚੀ ਮੁੱਚੀ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਕਹੀਏ ਕਿ ਅਤੀਤ ਦਾ ਭਵਿੱਖ ਹੋ. ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਖਾਸ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਕਹੀਏ ਤਸਵੀਰਬਾਜ਼ ਵੀ ਹਨਗੇ. ਇਹ ਕੈਮਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਛੇੜਖਾਨੀ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਕਰਦਾ ਪਰ ਇਹ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਸੀਰੀਅਸ ਨੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲੋਂ. ਇਹ ਪਬਲੀਕੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਵੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਈ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ. ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਈ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਹਨਗੀਆਂ ਉਹ ਬੜੀਆਂ ਰੋਚਕ ਹਨਗੀਆਂ. ਆਪਣੇ ਇਹ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਫ਼ਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਆਪਣਾ ਫੋਨ ਤੇ ਕੈਮਰਾ ਕੁਛ ਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਚੱਕੀ ਫਿਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਉਹ ਜੋ ਦੇਖਣ ਦਾ ਜੋ ਅੰਦਾਜ਼ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਇਹ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਨੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਕਾਬਿਲ ਗੌਰ ਹੈ. ਉਹ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਨੇ. ਇਹ ਸਮਝਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਨੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਨੂੰ. ਔਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੈਸ਼ਨ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਵਿਜ਼ੂਅਲ ਆਰਟ ਤੇ ਫੈਸ਼ਨ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਫੋਟੋਗ੍ਰਾਫੀ ਦੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਮੁਲਾਂਕਿਤ ਹੁੰਦਾ. ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਐਗਜ਼ੀਬਿਸ਼ਨਸ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਖਾਸ ਮੰਨੀਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ ਉਹਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਇੱਕ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਦਾ ਡੀਕੋਡਡ ਪੈਰਾਡੌਕਸ ਸੀ 2011 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ. ਸੋਲ ਇਨ ਦ ਸਪੇਸ ਅਰਸ਼ੀ ਰੂਹ ਜਾਂ ਅਰਸ਼ਾਂ 'ਚ ਰੂਹ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਮੁਹਾਵਰਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦਾ ਕੱਸ ਸਕਾਂ. 2013 ਉਹ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ. ਆਪਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਅਰਸ਼ਾਂ 'ਚ ਹੀ ਹਾਂ. ਫਰਸ਼ਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬੈਠਾ. ਧਰਤੀ ਵੀ ਅਰਸ਼ਾਂ 'ਚ ਮੰਡਰਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ. ਸੂਰਜ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਘੁੰਮਦੀ ਗੱਪਾਂ ਮਾਰਦੀ ਹੈ. ਅਤੇ ਲਲਾਰੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ 2019 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਹਾਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ 2 ਸਾਲ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਕਫਾ ਪਾਇਆ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ 'ਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਕੰਮ ਫਿਰ ਜਾਰੀ ਕੀਤਾ. So JJ, welcome to the YaarAnād Virtual Baithak Series. I'm personally delighted as you were mentioning that you mentioned about Lalaari 2019 and the line that struck me when we met at your office and so on and so forth. I knew things were going on, but I didn't know you were actually officially taking a 2-year sabbatical. Why take a sabbatical would be the first question, and then you will have to answer why end that sabbatical.
Yes. Well, first of all, I must tell you, it was sheer delight hearing such beautiful Punjabi. It's been a while. I think this amount of Punjabi, the last time I heard was when I was in Chandigarh studying. But once you move to Delhi, it's all a completely different, zone that we exist in. So wonderful. Great to hear that. The sabbatical, well, yes, I mean, it had been now 25 or 26 years in the fashion business, and I was very fortunate to have been there when the movement started in India. In other words, we're part of the pioneering batch who created Indian fashion, and which is always going to be, something very special to me. But by the time I was reaching, 25 years of my brand, I also started noticing kind of a destruction of the true meaning of style in India. And it happened really when I was sitting at somebody else's couture show, and I was looking at the show and I was looking at the clothes, and then I just felt that everybody was doing pretty much the same things, and the whole spirit of identities and unique signatures was pretty much on its way out. And all that seemed to matter was that, how can we make clothes that sell? But all that is very good, because eventually, of course, any business is, done because you need to earn revenue. But at the same time, I kind of also felt that I had perhaps joined the rat race, and I maybe had also been doing pretty much the same. So it was a very hard decision that I had to take, which is, I said, let's just break away from everything for about 2 years, do something which is not related to my name on the product. But of course, I did a lot of other interesting things in those 2 years, like creative directorship for a great project in Bahrain and many other things. And then after 2 years, when I'd kind of detoxified my whole sort of, being, we came back with a show which was, I think, one of the purest representation of our true spirit, and after years. So I think that, for me, that was great joy. And I don't believe that we should be doing anything which we don't enjoy. I mean, that was the pure reason I got into this trade for the first time. I was studying to be a chartered accountant. I moved to fashion because I knew I had to do something creative. So really it was that simple, that I did not want to run the race anymore, take a 2-year detox, come back and just be who you really are.
25 years is what you did with Swarovski, the Alika project. Yes. And the sabbatical comes immediately after. Was it like a sigh of relief that, oh yeah, Silver Jubilee now, perfect. I can retire now, perfect. And, and then what you're telling me, it's a sabbatical which is not quite a sabbatical, but because you were still doing things.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was a sabbatical from what I was known for doing. So that in itself was a departure. And I was very clear that there's no question of me retiring anytime soon. I mean, there's much to do, and I enjoy my work. I love my work. So there's no reason why I would kind of, carve myself away from it. But at the same time, I was also very sure that, it had become a little tad boring. And boredom is not good for any creative sort of field. And one had to kind of rekindle the whole ethos, redefine, believe it internally myself, and then kind of represent it. And those 2 years were a great reckoner. And surprisingly, when I did our 25th anniversary celebrations with Swarovski, which was a huge event, I had no plans of actually taking the sabbatical.
I see. So
there was nothing like that. And in fact, I think we did another show after that event. And it's right after that show that I said, okay, we need to kind of redefine, restructure, break, rebuild. And I'm not talking only about business. I'm talking about psychology. I'm talking about everything. Just about everything had to be reconstructed and pushed forward in a very pure form. And that's exactly what we did.
The idea of boredom and then the first idea that you shared was to do with monotony from a musical perspective, from the perspective. Expression is the same anyway. What you do, I don't see any different between hi, re, ga, sa, re, ga, sa, re, ga, sa, re, ni. There's no different. I don't see you guys any different. Medium is different. Boredom is to do with monotony. The moment you feel bored, there is something wrong. It's something. Suddenly the stone has turned tasteless. Ucharpana aanda hai. Monotony comes by way of repetition. It also, for me, addresses the idea of the soil not being fertile anymore. Same phal, same swad, same phal. Sometimes, if it is the same fruit with the same taste, the contrast is lost. Even a bad fruit in between rekindles the joy for the fruit, the value of the same fruit even.
Right.
So what was it that when you say boredom, I want to know more.
When I say boredom, I was not talking about bored with my own work. I was bored with what was happening around me. And it's very important sometimes to, you have your own sort of zone, an area where you grow, but then you're surrounded by similar sort of these things, where you also like to see excitement and growth. And I noticed that a large number of the movement in specifically to couture in India was becoming stagnant. And when you need to take things to the next level, the first thing you have to get rid of is stagnancy. You cannot prosper in a stagnant environment. So now this is purely my thoughts. The others may feel completely differently. And the decision to kind of step back for a couple of years was also mine. But I was very clear that this is my domain. I love it. I belong here. This belongs to me. I'm not going to stay away too long. But let me just take a breather. Let me look at it as a spectator, which means I step back and look at what's happening. And let me also look within to see what I want to do. And I must say, coming back after 2 years is a completely new energy. And as I was telling a lot of the editors and all who were curious at that time, I said, well, if I were to measure the level of exuberance that I had when I was 22, when I started, to now, it's identical. And I think that's exactly what I wanted. See, I didn't want to be the 53-year-old. I wanted to be the 22-year-old again. So I'm back there, and it can't be better.
Okay. The other idea of being lonely, I'm versed with it. I gave up like you were on way to being an accountant. For others, you ended up being an accountant for yourself. I somehow, something similar, I was on way to be, I was an aviator. I would have been flying, wasted my life, or I've spent my life flying fighters and so on and so forth. I was selected to fly for the Air Force. I renounced and got into conservation. It's been a very lonely journey. But when you are there, so me being lonely in a world which I'm trying to recover and revive is one thing. Then I'm trying to inspire people, hey, come on guys, there are 7 elders that I found. These were the czars of the time. They never lost a duel before partition in the world of duels. And they're living in anonymity. So why don't you take responsibility of working with that master percussionist? Why don't you work with that, exegete and so on and so forth? Right. Nobody was interested. They thought, who cares? I mean, they were looking for jobs. But in your world, when and I'm somehow, there's no competition in a way, because the way 27 elders built me, I was at times more informed than one of my, singularly my own teacher, because I was being taught and groomed by others as well. So I was slowly, my buckets were filling up and my individual teachers were losing, but collectively they were something. Individually they were soon getting dwarfed. But in your field, right, which you co-founded, the first batch, as you said, that boredom or that kind of stagnancy comes when you've either been left behind or you've gone too far ahead, and you need to either catch up with people, find a way to overtake them, or you need to wait to let them catch up and be where you are. Or you say, all right, guys, you go on in the path. I'm taking a different course and I'll see you a little later. Maybe many of you will come and join in the same orbit. What was it for you? Was it, it's a statement. The point I'm making is, it's a statement when you see the field is not able to inspire you. That's a damning statement.
It wasn't the field, it was the work happening around me. Again, I'd like to correct you. I find fashion and creativity the ultimate blessing. I mean, I'm so glad that, I have that upon me, because that gives me a playground where I can play all I want, as much as I want, with all the things that I want, and have fun. But I think once you've been part of the journey from the very inception, then you want to see a beautiful evolution happening along the way. And please remember that I'm not making a generic statement. So maybe I expected the country as a whole to sort of evolve gracefully. And what I saw was that a part of the fraternity, extremely creative, making their own path, treading beautifully and evolving, but a majority kind of being stagnant. And that's a feeling which can actually kind of be very damaging, because when you see you're in a country which is immense talent. I mean, you can't even understand. This country is insane in terms of creativity, in terms of talent, in terms of our legacy of crafts and embroiderers and this thing. I mean, nobody has it better. India really has it all. Why then are we not going to the next level of pushing ourselves to create better? And when that reached a plateau, I realized that I needed to also step back to see what was happening. And whether we like it or not, it's quite ironical. What I did in those 2 years is happening now, courtesy the pandemic, with just about everybody. They're all stepping back and seeing what really they want in life and what is the purpose and how do they move forward from here on. So maybe I was just I took a step earlier to just look at what's going on. And today, when we are sort of coming, doing our little things all over again in the style that we are known for, we're just in this amazing position because we're just, taking a step at a time. Whereas most of the others who had kind of significantly taken steps forward have to now come back, unfortunately, because of what's happening, and relook at the whole situation again. So it's all serendipity. You really don't give it that much thought. When things are meant to happen, you feel it in, the pit of your stomach, the gut. And you should never lie. If the gut never lies, then you need to believe it. When that happens, the way forward is always excellent.
And when you come back, you do Lalaari. Lalaari is the person who colors.
Correct.
And that I thought was it was not by sheer accident that you would call it Lalaari. You're talking about colors, about lack of colors, and then you talk of colors.
Yes, so Lalaari was, I have two avatars. I have me, the designer, the couturier, the person who does great clothes and great interiors, and then the artist in me, who's essentially a photographer, but who knows where I go tomorrow. So it was just coincidence that by the time the season that I decided to re-enter with my new show, Fashion, which is called Tabriz, also happened to be the same season that I had to do my new photography show called Lalaari. And you're right, there is an underlying sentiment which is deceptively kind of similar, but Lalaari was based totally on individuals and how they saw themselves and how the world saw them, and there's a tangible difference between those two beings, So I was trying to interpret that and sort of, project it to the world in a new energy. And Lalaari simply means that you are who you are, and what are the colors you bring into the world is entirely up to you. You can live an entire life in monochromatics, or you can be the most colorful person on the planet. It all depends on how good, how much at peace you are with yourself. And I think that pretty much relates everything you do in life.
Let me share with our, with our listeners today and tomorrow. I wish I could knock the doors of the ones who were. A little excerpt from which includes the Lalaari of 2019. Shall we?
Sure, please.
That was fantastic. What colors? What colors? Tell me about Lalaari. You did speak to me about it in some detail when we met at the time. It was wonderful to see quite an eclectic view of India. Usually when we see fashion shows and all that, or exhibitions, Sikhs are not really present. I mean, of course, we've had the fortune of seeing the turban with you. You're not wearing one today. But,
right.
And it was wonderful to see you wearing, the full bana, if I may. For you to, bring in not just as showpieces some young Sikh men and of course women, they are there. Tell me, in any case, about Lalaari, how and what was it? What were you?
So I'm going to sort of just I didn't see that video, so I'm assuming I know what you're talking about. So just to differentiate, the show that you saw just now was Tabriz, and that was the name of the collection.
Oh, I see.
Yes, and Lalaari was the name of the photography show. So there's a difference in
I see. So the stills that we will show has some of the Lalaari
yes,
images. So I misunderstood that.
But Tabriz was and Tabriz was the show that we did in 2019 September, And yes, and considering that I'm the only Sikh designer in India, I think and we're incredibly proud of our legacy and where we come from. And I think Sikh men can certainly be some of the most handsome creatures if you put them wherever sort of you intend to. And I still remember that when these boys came out towards the end of the show, the entire hall sort of just went up in applause, and which was amazing because you had the most stunning women and great looking men coming on through the show. But then this whole army of 12 or 15 strapping young lads came out, and everybody was like literally on their feet. So nothing more to it other than the fact that I celebrate the turban for starters.
Yeah.
I wore a turban at the show after a long time because generally I'm easier like this, and I think it's just something that had been kind of living inside me for a long time, of bringing a lot of the boys onto ramp and showing a completely different thing. In fact, interestingly, we're even working on a line which is going to be called Style and the Sikh, which is going to focus on going back in time in Punjab and taking out nuances from our history, which are based on style and on elegance, and presenting them in a completely new modern way to today's world. And that's a project which is currently underway and will get launched in about 6 months.
I see.
Yeah.
Tell me about I'm quite intrigued about the idea of clothing, fashion,
Yeah.
leader, libas, कह लो. Is it an attempt to hide the ugliness or showcase the beauty?
Well, I think when I started my career, I never realized it. But as time went by, I realized that we are actually psychologists and not designers at all. And we saw people transform before our very eyes. And when I say transform, I do not mean just physically. I meant what happened to those people within themselves and how they felt about themselves. So I think that is the greatest service of fashion. Often fashion is, dismissed as being, there's one school which says it's utilitarian, which means, well, you got to wear a kurta and you got to wear some pants to kind of survive. The others, some call it obnoxious, that why should somebody be spending that kind of money on essentially a utilitarian item. And there's a confused lot in the middle, which is kind of deciding which way to go. But the bottom line is, I think that anything, and this applies to art in general, and fashion also is wearable art. So if you see a person wearing something and you see him stand in front of a mirror and turn around as a completely different person, I think that's a huge service. The confidence levels are different. The person is walking differently. There's a joy that you see on the face. He or she is suddenly feeling more confident and more sure of himself, and not essentially because they're not good enough, but just they feel better. So I think that's the core purpose of fashion in its entirety. It's sort of, it releases a buoyant sort of energy within people, which makes them feel very good. A lot of it is to do with how they've started looking and feeling after the wearing. A tad bit of it is to do with the sort of, the luxury of the label they're wearing. So all these things come into play together. But bottom line is, you're suddenly looking at a person who came in very diminutive and sort of not so sure, and then you do your little thing on them. They're still not so sure, and then they go and face the mirror, and mirrors never lie. You just have to believe them, So, and they turn around and you see the happiest person in front of you. And we're specialists in weddings, which means that we're really talking about boys and girls for dressing them up for their big day. Even more important, because otherwise you go and buy your t-shirts and jeans, it's easier. But when you're sort of dressing up to transport yourself into another era, and then, this is the only opportunity you're really going to get to dress the way that you do on that day. And then you feel absolutely wonderful about it. I think that to me is the most gratifying thing that this profession gives me. That sort of solace that I've made somebody look and feel beautiful, not just look beautiful.
But let me try and pursue that a little further. So what is it that you see happen? Is it I'm deliberately using the term ugliness, the ugly within. Is it that the ugliness that has been carried like a burden until that moment, that you do your little thing, as you said, on them, and that they are transformed? Or is it the burden of never having been able to showcase that the beauty that they had, that they possessed, and getting revealed? How do you see it?
I think it's an extremely interesting sort of question, because I've never been asked this before, and it's a really good one. But you see, I strongly believe that the ugliness in a person is really within. It's not the physical ugliness which really is disturbing, it's the one that happens within. And a lot of people, if you look at them, are, they wear masks. So the front, what they show to the world is lovely, and we are very confident in this thing, but you go deeper and you see this completely different person who may or may not have the same charm and charisma that the outward appearance has. So they could be depressed, they could be uncertain, they could be insecure. All these are the uglinesses that sort of, this is the true ugliness that resides within. I think that the way you look addresses both. It takes care of your insecurities, and it also makes you look better physically. So it's a double whammy. In other words, that if you're careful and not blind towards what you choose to wear, and now I'm not talking about weddings, I'm talking about everyday existence, how you dress, how you look, how you come across to people is perhaps one of the most important things today. A lot is said by the way you look than what words can say. You actually sometimes don't have to say a word, and you've already got an image across to the other person. So I think we should not sort of dismiss dressing as I don't know, as I said, some people think it's an extravagance or whatever, but as long as you have your intrinsic sense of style, which gives you comfort, makes you feel better, which makes you address some of your little villains running inside, and also projects you as somebody who's confident and is looking great, you've got a good thing going. I think that's all really that matters.
Yeah. I think people also need to understand that, and I would rather have you address that, how I feel that a beautifully and appropriately created libas or an attire and shringar all together, let me just call it shringar, is a skin that a person never had. But once you have had it, you never lose it. Even if you don't wear it, it has a life of its own. We've seen gathas, we've seen stories of brides wearing the bridal dress of their mothers, of their grandmothers, of their great-grandmothers.
Yes.
It has a body of its own. It's a living being. It's more than an heirloom. So
because it has emotion.
Isn't it?
That changes everything, yes.
And even if I've seen people transform, and I would, as I said that, I would rather have you address that, because I've seen some, but you've seen so many, and the gamut of transformation, the dynamic change, you would be versed with, and I would rather hear from you, but I'm just sharing this idea, bringing this in our conversation, that a beautifully, appropriately in the hands of a master, a dress is more than a dress. It's not just a dress. It's someone that you get introduced to that was always within you, that you never thought that was there. And even if it is locked in your finest vaults, you're never the same. You never go back to what you were before.
Yes, and it's important to remember that one of the key factors that a lot of people tend to overlook is how comfortable are you wearing it? Because that's a very, very important thing. Are you, that's why a lot of people who blindly follow trends often end up buying clothes and wearing clothes which don't necessarily, they don't feel good about them, but they wear them because they're meant to and they should. And there's a big difference. I mean, one of my classic examples I have, and I'm going to put everything in a modern context. So I had gone to Paris for Couture Week, and Paris, as you know, is the mecca of all things fashionable. And I had a friend of mine with me. She was a beautiful woman, and she was I think she was about 10 years older than me at that time, and still is. But at that time also, she was in her late 40s. And we had been invited to this amazing, high fashion ball which was happening in Paris. Now, when a high fashion extravaganza happens in Paris, you're talking about the best dressed people in the world coming together. So I was invited for it, and she happened to be in Paris, and I said, look, I'm invited for this. Would you like to come along? She said, of course. You're a great fun girl. So we went together. And she wore a sari, a chicken sari, ivory, and she took a Chanel jacket and wore it over that, and then she wore a belt. We walked in that door, we walked through those doors, and there was not a single person in the room who didn't turn to look. And that, to me, is the magic of the comfort you have in what you're wearing. Wow. She dressed Indian. She didn't wear gowns and, to have a little fun, she popped in a Chanel jacket, which is a basic small jacket. And the world suddenly came alive to this new diva who had walked in, and everybody wanted to know who she was. And here was this person who just wore what she wears always, which is a nice sari, and took a jacket along with it. So being comfortable in what you're wearing adds to the aura when you walk into a space, as opposed to wearing the best clothes, the most expensive, but not being comfortable in them. You won't even get noticed. So everything is not about what you wear. It's about how you feel wearing them, and it's about how much you belong to that look. And this is really what true style is all about. It's about individuality. And I think when every person, they kind of, when they intend dressing up, they must choose something which they're comfortable in, which they feel good about, because that changes the body aura. You just express a completely different energy. And I think I use the word energy a lot because I believe that the entire planet is about energies only. So it's one of the most important things that we're surrounded with, intangible, unseen, but very, very important.
Yes. The Gurū Nānak, the series is dedicated to the 550th birth anniversary of Sahib Sri Gurū Nānak Dēv. I was in the midst of curating something at the Museum of Civilizations in Rome when the pandemic struck, and 3 months of my preparation then, of course, a bit of it we showed on Rai 3 with the top, event watched by 2 million people and so on and so forth on the 6th of March. But that was just a little consolation that we did. That was being done with the Indian Embassy. So I thought, eventually people were hounding after me, do these concerts. Everybody became a television channel who had a smartphone. So I was like, no-nos for me. I was not part of it. And it seemed too mechanical and too monotonous. And there was too much of noise, and people just don't know what's music and what is noise. People who should be learning and listening are also broadcasting at the time when a grand master would be playing or performing or talking. Right. So I said no, I shut the doors, but then people hounded and this conversation began. April 17th, I was sitting in silence after having sung for some time and had been writing, and suddenly Baba Farid's tuk came. Jal jasi dhola hath na laye kasumbadai Duda thani navai Duda thani navai Fir hoye na Mēlā हाथ ना लाए कसुम्बड़ाए जल जासी ढोला हाथ ना लाए कसुम्बड़ाए. He says, दूधा थड़ी ना आवे फिर होए ना मेला. That is, the moment the breast and the drop of milk part, they never meet. So this idea of moment, the time, and the time is, as Guru Sahib says, "Haan ki yo singar, ki yo singar, milne katai ki yo singar ki yo." It's retrospect कि मैं श्रृंगार कर लेने. I have done them. Not that I will do or I shall do and I would want to do. Is a declaration? No, I have done my, I am ornate now. And I'm dressed up. Milan कहता है. Milan कहता है. So the time, ta is a distance. So is the farthest. How far I was, but then how far I had to travel to be ready for that meeting. Milan katai ki yo singar, original of Kabir. Now, the thought was that if I am to begin conversations, the idea of the Lokik Shringar is what fascinated me, because it's there in Gurbani. Is Kabir says Gao Gauri Dulhani Mangal Chara. He's talking about Dulhani. That Kabir is now the bride. Kahe Kabir mohe byahe chale hain purkh ek bhagwana. That hey people, Kabir is being married away by the one Purkh Parmeswara. And being a Dulhani means you're ornate. Gurū Nānak says कि Nanak sada suhagani jin jyoti jyot milaye. That Nanak is the eternal bride, ever bride. The idea, and I requested my very dear friend and one of the finest dancers on the planet, Prerna Shribali, then Gopika Verma, then Geeta Chandran. I said, can you show me how is it that you transform? I requested Ramanjeet, the actor. I'm requesting everyone and others. There's so many. Even Dominique de Villeneuve, who's got an instrument, as I talked about, the dresses, 1752 cello, which the Bank of Paris bought for $450,000 or euros, whatever it was, in the year 2000. And he's sitting, and what is it? The bow. Where does it come from? Which maestro, which architayo made it? Which lutayo made the instrument? And all those hours when you get selected and, when you get requested that can you please honor this instrument? This instrument, as long as you live, will be in your possession. Then it'll move to the next master who may not yet be born. So it is Shringar, this idea of ornamentation. How the gurus have taken the idea of the Lokik Shringar and tried to make us understand, but they lived. They're not doing it. I mean, it's not that just to trying to teach me they use the metaphor. That's too simple a summation. It's something more. It's something more. Gurū Nānak says, Har 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 Kanthale Pahre or Khema Singar Kaman Tan Pahre Rāve Lal Pyari Mere Lal says, Khima, forgiveness da shringar, je bride apne tante pandi hai. If she wears the robe of forgiveness, the bride, the groom is very happy. So the idea, why? I mean, they could have just said, well, wear khima or be forgiving. But the idea of the preparation that it takes, I think they are talking about that process. What does it take for a JJ Valaya to become? What does it take for a Swarovski to all those cuts on a diamond? All that it takes, the thousands of years of the idea of identifying a diamond and cutting it, the thread, how do you spin a thread, how do you prepare the matter, the material that it can become a thread, the ideas. It's a convergence of so much, the colors, what you did Lalaari, just before we began our conversation today. I mean, Guru Sahib kehne na, tan cholna soya lal, lal cholna tan soya. Tan cholna soya lal surjan bhani pyare surjan bhani pyare surjan bhani taman mohya cholna soya tan cholna soya lal. This is something extraordinary. It's a process of transformation.
True.
And that's why I'm in conversation with you, because as you said, you've seen people transform from those who had no idea that they had the locks and they had the keys that they could unlock themselves.
Right.
And the lock should never close again.
Yes, absolutely.
Tell me how you see this.
See exactly what I mean.
This transformation, the idea of Shringar.
As I said that...
as the gurus, as I mentioned, that some of the gurus and the bhagats have spoken about the Shringar. And I wish, pardon my interruption just before you start, that you've been busy with the projects and I've been sort of busy with writing. Maybe the second part of the conversation, maybe you could have, given the situation, I know it's COVID-19 era, but whoever is in contact, maybe it'll be great to see you transform. Some of the top dancers have done Shringar on live, in a live conversation. And how does a dancer lose herself or himself and become the patra that they're going to enact? How the actor becomes the act and the plot itself. It'll be great to also see that. Maybe one day we will plan that in the near future. Please continue.
Yes. Once we have human beings around us. No, well, as I said, I mean, the whole process of fashion per se, a lot of people have always been, they think it's frivolous, but it's not. It's very intense. And the very fact that the word crops up so many times in very intense, like you just sang quite a few, but the whole process of dressing up, I think, is not to do only with the physicality of it. It is how you are transforming within and projecting yourself to the world. So I strongly believe that anything that can achieve that to an individual, for an individual, is something which cannot be easily dismissed. So yes, I've seen it happening over the past, now going to be 3 decades. I've seen it happening all the time. I've seen transformations. I've seen it the other way around also, where some people have not been happy. So, you've seen that transformation as well. But it also reinstates the power of dressing, and therefore it should be pampered, it should be nurtured, and it should be taken to the next level. And that's my core belief. I mean, if I honestly now, purely as a brand, if I were to speak as a brand, one of my greatest wishes is that within my lifetime, I'm able to create something which can reach out to a larger group of people so that more and more people can imbibe style and feel good about themselves. At the moment, we're a niche brand. We are a luxury brand. But supposing we were to go to the bridge to luxury level and then to the premium and try and reach out to more and more people, everybody should feel good about, what they're wearing. And that I think is the true purpose of fashion anyways.
And how come fashion? I mean, what attracted you to the field?
Well, I think I strongly believe that DNA kind of plays a big role.
I mean, I remember you in the Punjab University, with that motorbike of yours, and all those colors and so on and so forth. You're just maybe a year or two senior in college, I think. When did you pass out? I'm 88.
87.
Yeah, you were a year ahead of me.
Yeah,
and I was in government college, Chandigarh. You were in DAV, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I was first in
SD?
government college and then SD.
SD college also, which was...
But I was in DC.
Because SD was in sector 32 and I lived in 31. So we had many common buggers,
Right.
many common bumps in between. And I remember that motorbike of yours. I mean, and I used to be mostly in NCC uniform, flying all the time with my aero models and so on and so forth.
Right.
So we were like cast for, I don't know what life. When did that occur? Because at that time, I didn't know that you would ever end up...
Yeah. Well, neither did I. So that makes
okay, at least two. That's I would feel lonely no more.
No, the background was very I'm an army kid, so
I'm an Air Force kid, so you're a lesser mortal.
Yeah, so okay. So we you know how it is, growing up in cantonments all our life. So it's a completely different world.
The idea of fashion is only as much.
Yes, and it was brilliant. But my mother was always very fond of making kids clothes and doing embroideries on her own. So I think that was my first exposure to embroidery per se, because I used to see her go to the welfare, teach all the ladies there, and then when dad retired, she started her own little thing. So she was embroidering all the time.
Oh,
I kept on kind of absorbing that. And then, because I think my aunt, my Masi, she's no more now, but Parmeshwar Godrej, she was in Bombay, and she was one of the finest interior designers of her time at that time, and also quite a style icon. So I think it's in the blood, because today when I look at my daughter, she's exceptional. I often see the way she works and her craft and her skill, and it just comes naturally to her. And there was no training involved. She only observed and moved on. And that's exactly, I think, what happened to me, other than the fact that in those times, the fashion industry did not exist in India. So I had to, do the BCom honors, chartered accountancy, and finally I took a stand. I mean, that was divine intervention for sure, when I decided that I don't know what I want to do, but I do know what I don't want to do. And I quit what I was doing. It was really as simple as that. And a year of nothing after that, till an uncle from Delhi came and said, there is something called NIFT which has just opened in Delhi. Maybe you should come and have a look at it.
I see.
It was love at first sight when I walked through those doors. I said, this is it. This is my calling. Yes. Didn't take me a nanosecond.
Wow.
The moment I saw sorry, going to use it again, the energy of the place, it just came to me, and that was it. So the rest is history.
Our timelines match. In 89, I get selected for the Indian Air Force at number 1 Air Force Selection Board, Dehradun, number AFSP, and 90, you become the first Indian student to win the Prix Station at the Young Designers International Competition held in Paris. And I was also the one to win the, to be served with the wrath of people when I renounced my flying career. They said, boy, Sonny, you gone bonkers, huh?
Yeah.
I thought I'd gone mad. Although, you're going to make it Hagi Jatha. And how, Fauji kids, they thought that singing Gurbani somehow Or I said, but I'm not on road to making a jatha. I'm into conservation. I'm going into research. Nobody understood. They thought,
no, you're a unique species.
And then, how did that happen? From 89, you're already like in 90, you're already in Paris.
89 is when I joined NIFT.
Yeah.
90 is when I won this award. 91 is when I graduated and from NIFT. And I flipped a coin at the end of my graduation to decide whether I'd launch my own label or go and work somewhere.
The flip of a coin.
Well, clearly, absolutely a flip of a coin. That was some of my biggest decisions in those days.
You were crazier than I thought.
Of course, totally demented. You can't be normal and then hope to do great things. Never, that doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
So that's it. So I launched my label.
Gosh.
I was this award-winning star student of NIFT at that time. Full of confidence, I launched my label. The first commercial collection is a complete washout, nothing sold. And all my dreams came crumbling down. I'm like, oh my God, this is it. And you don't even have money because you've just about got a little to put it together. But then Sardar and army kid, it's a lethal combination.
Yeah.
You never give up. So you make a second line, which then happens to be a complete sellout.
I see.
So you quickly come back to this is it. You know, we are like constantly in postings.
Yeah.
We kind of move from not one place to another.
Yeah.
We from one sort of complete intellectual space to another.
Even friends change, no? Schools
And
change,
then,
colleges change, everything.
Yeah, and that continues all our lives. We never really get out of it. So whenever something changes, you're ready to embrace the next with full gusto. You know, so it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
I don't think I've outgrown that till now.
Oh.
I mean, look at me. I just after 25 years in the industry, I said 2 years, okay, I'm chilling. That's it. And then to come back in boom, you know, in as big a way as I exited.
Right. And then you won the 91. You won the Alexa Award and the Thapa DuPont Medal at the NIFT graduation ceremony.
Yes.
How was it? I mean, what was who were your, this so-called, gang of that first generation? You guys were also pushing each other, inspiring each other.
Yeah, because we had nobody to look up to. Remember,
you were the first kids on the block. Yeah.
I faced even greater disadvantage because, even though fashion had entered India, Sikhs were not essentially correlated with fashion. And therefore, my trudge was a little...
Not even with music, huh?
Huh?
Not even with music and culture. Exegesis. We're supposed to be the certified illiterates.
Yeah, you're right. So, but you learn. You just keep moving, keep evolving, keep falling, keep getting up. You walk, you run, and everything falls into place. I think it's all related to, how much of that passion do you really keep alive, and how much honesty do you keep with yourself. Between the two, you get your life pretty much in order.
And who were your other buddies in crime in the first batch that you guys were there?
There were lots of people. I mean, remember, all the people weren't from NIFT. So the person I consider as the father of Indian fashion is a guy called Rohit Khosla, who's no more now. But he had studied in St. Martin's in London. So he came and he started the whole movement of fashion in India in 87, 88. And around the same time, NIFT had opened. So everything happened in those 3 or 4 years were the formative years of Indian fashion. So I'd say from 88 to 92, 87 to 92, those 5 years, everything that created the foundation of the Indian fashion industry, in some way or the other, is connected to that span of 5 years.
I see. And what happened before? Before was, as you did mention, but are you telling that nothing serious happened before that, or was it after 47, or was there a history of fashion before? Because we had the kingdoms, we had the royalties, the zimedaris. You're from Kabul. What was the situation before, and if it was there, what happened to it?
It was non-existent. I mean, sure, the finest garments the world has ever seen, and not only garments, jewelry, architecture, everything were in the palaces of India.
Right.
And we were the best craftsmen, the best handiwork, the best gemstones. Everything was beautiful. But then there was a sudden demise of everything, especially fashion. And modern Indian fashion really came about in 87. Before that, there used to be a couple of boutiques, and everybody used to go to a kapra ka dukan, buy the kapra, go to a tailor, get it done. If there was a wedding in the family, there were embroidery units where people would go themselves and say that, look, can you make us something? So if I were to say the organized modern Indian fashion, 1987 would be the year I would say it all began, truly began. Sure, there were fits and starts before that, but nothing really tangible.
I see. We'll take a couple of the many who are sending you regards and salutations. But Dr. Prem Singh, artist Prem Singh, who is the former principal of the Arts College in Chandigarh, he has asked a question in the comment section: what your clothes say about your personality?
Well, this is exactly what we were actually trying to touch upon.
Yeah.
So I always say one thing, that A, never shy away from trying new things, and B, never lie to yourself when you look at the mirror. Between these two decisions, you pretty much get it all right. And your personality is who you are intrinsically, but sometimes it also stops you from trying out new things. So it's always good to try new things, but then stand in front of a mirror and just sort of know that this is working or not working. How do you feel wearing it? I think people who overdo things also end up looking silly, and the people who underdo things, they look boring. So you've got to take a pick between boring and silly is the zone where you're perfect. So I think one just needs to be a little experimental, but also very comfortable in what you go with.
I have a technical request. Can you just reduce the headroom space?
Reduce?
Yeah, just
like that?
Yeah. That's good. This is better for me. And artist Siddharth says, could you please talk about Khalsa dress design and Guru Gobind Singh Sahib dress and kurtas? Basically at the time, which I was just referring to the royal era, going back in time, how would you like to say something on that?
Well, I've never been so there are two types of people who sort of involved in creation. One lot is the one who research intensely, and the knowledge bank of what happened at a particular era of time, being absolutely perfect.
True.
I don't belong to that genre. My genre is a visual world, which is why I also am a photographer. I take in imagery, and I take in all the details that comes with imagery. I don't rationalize why it happened at that time, because I am not the person I'm going to dress is really more interested in seeing how that garment affects his or her personality. So my entire work is based on research, but it's on visual research. So this thing that I mentioned earlier, that we are doing something called Style in the Sikh, a lot of interesting things are going to come out there. So I'd rather not talk about it now, because there's a lot coming in the next 6 months, and it'll be very relevant to going back in Sikh history and extracting from there.
And to come to the idea, to our conversation about form and formless, in a way, music and silence, how do you play with that when you're creating something for a body? The silence for me, if I may, as a layperson, would see as the end of the fabric, and how you end. I mean, the whole idea in Naad Siddhi is how do you awaken a note, how you sustain it over a period of time, and how you put it to rest without mutilating its mellifluous self. It's a simple formula for us, it's a rare formula, but for me, it's again the fabric. How it begins from one place and ends at another, but like a melody, you think it's an end, but it's also the beginning. So, to do with an attire, the silence would be the place space on a body where you see the body, a part of a body, parts of the body, or you see the skin, that is that silence? Is that what you deem as silence, how you play with that, or that transfers as something else? Of course, there's silence within the fabric,
So
within
I'm not sure.
within the design itself, how you place some of the patterns that you build, the space between patterns, etc., could be deemed as silence. But then the absence,
Yes.
where the fabric is not, for me, is, as a layperson, also silence, where that
Yeah.
fabric is not talking. But as I said earlier, that are you, when I asked you the question, are you hiding ugliness, or you're helping reveal the beauty within that is there, either hidden or known to the person? Because it's the first time the culture shock would happen. But the second time, the person would say, well, can I have this cut, that cut? Can I have this sleeve, long sleeve, short sleeve? Can I have this? So the second time, the person concerned is a knowledgeable one, who's making informed choices now, who's now in a conversation with you. That aspect of the play with the form and formlessness is what I'm referring to. Do you actually see things like that?
See, I don't know whether my
As
answer is
music
going
and
to be,
silence and form and
Yeah,
formlessness.
but music in silence. Okay, so I don't know whether my answer is going to address your question, but I am going to speak about it nevertheless. So contradiction is the most important thing in existence. If there was no night, there would be no day. If there was no black, there would be no white. And I personally revel in contradiction. So for me, putting two elements together which a layman would say would never work, and making them work in a beautiful way is what I specialize in. And I strongly believe, I mean, we've got a byline which says the royal nomad. That's what we are known as. And there's a oxymoron sort of there. A royal and a nomad is like the two ends of the spectrum. But that's exactly what our brand is all about. I believe that to really create a true style statement, you must have this element of contradiction in the way you dress. And therefore, when you spoke of silence in music, we do soundtracks for our shows, and we sit sometimes with the best musicians. We build crescendos, and then boom, everything goes, and there's just a single percussion which continues. And the impact of that is probably the most powerful. And remember, it's synchronized with the movement of the human body. So there's a complete visual drama unfolding where every element comes alive. The lights, the costume, the model, the way she walks, the music, the crescendos, the highs, the lows, the audience, because the wave of audience, so everything changes. So some of my most magical moments in shows have always been where we've really built up the music and then it disappears. And you only hear that single chin, 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 and there's just one person walking on it, and there's just one top light lighting up every step. So that's important in life. Now, as opposed to a cacophony which just goes on and on. So similarly, it applies to clothes as well. When you do, I'm a maximalist at heart, right? I don't pretend to be a minimalist. India is a maximalist. Well, look at our architecture. We've gone crazy carving temples of stone for I don't know how many years. And look at our food, complex, aromas, flavors, masalas. It's certainly not French cuisine where you get a loaf of bread and a piece of cheese. Okay? Festivals, my God, our weddings, so complex. So we are essentially maximalists at heart who have now started traveling and imbibing the Western world and are trying to be minimal. And whilst all that is great because, well, you want to, be in sync with the world, but one shouldn't let go of what makes you unique. So if we were to, for example, so the reason I'm bringing this out is because embroidery and weaves and fabric and textile is our DNA. So if we do something, we must play with that. But to give relief, to highlight a particular weave or a motif or something is all about a play of relief, of cut, of the person wearing it, whether the colors work with the skin tones, everything comes together. It's not a very simple thing of this works and this doesn't. But the main answer being that contradiction is something I totally believe in and totally support and totally practice in whatever I do. And therefore also in my imagery in photography, you'll notice I've dressed up these figures, as royalty, but they'll be sitting in places which are complete contradiction to where they should be sitting. And that's my whole idea, because that gives intrigue, interest. People are piqued. Okay, what's happening here? Why is this like perfect but imperfect? And that creates the drama,
Is the perfect imperfect or the imperfect perfect?
Absolutely. It's how you look at it. It's perspective.
Yeah. And I would, of course, like to show, because you've mentioned about, being a Fauji kid and about the photography. I was moved by the posts of yours, Facebook post, when you mentioned about your, what happened in Beirut.
Yes.
It somehow, wakes us up, even from, it's like deafening silence, and then even the silence within the realm of silence, even that, it is a second deafening silence in a way. COVID-19, and you remarked already in your comment today that, and tell us about them today. Let us honor them in a way. Fortunately, as your note said, that loss of life did not occur, but otherwise the loss of the tangible and intangible wealth that they had amassed over the body of work. Who knows what is left and what isn't. Some of the stencils were eye-watering, because it reminds me of the attack on my own work at the fort of Sultanpur Lodi by the Punjab Police Corps, when they destroyed, which is a crime against humanity, destroying Gursikh heritage, destroying Punjab heritage, destroying the nation's heritage, destroying world heritage. My stencils, dated stencils from 30 years ago, 25, they were thrown in the sewers. 4 or 5 of them were recovered. So for me, it was very particularly moving because of that. How is the fashion industry and designers and creators like you are dealing with the COVID-19 situation, one, and then this double, jeopardy, if I may, that has happened to in Lebanon, that somehow showcases it, underscores the other silent blast that this COVID-19 has actually. So there's no different. That you can see it, there's a tangible remain, but this is the silent blast, which all of us, it was, I went to Sadia Delvi's house. I visited a dead person's house day before night, and the first living person I visited was poet, writer, and a very keen photographer, Shudip Sen, yesterday, and Simi. And talking of transformation, they were talking about one of the recent projects he did was with the dancer Aditi Mangaldas, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And they saw her transform when she wore, and all the makeup, all of that that they did. So it is impacting, and everybody's shocked that I've not gone since May 22nd. I've gone. These are the 2 houses I visited. The poet Amia Kumvar. I just went to pick up Amrita Pritam's books, which I did not go in. I was at the mosque, which is 3rd of 1st of July or so. That was it. Tell us how you're seeing the community, the design industry, the fashion industry react. How are you guys coping? Are things changing? Are things changing forever? How the business is being rethought, the plans, etc. Can you shed some light on that? And of course, a couple of words for your counterparts in Lebanon.
Yes. Well, Beirut was very unfortunate because you're already on the onslaught of a pandemic, and there's something like this happens. And the atelier that I mentioned in the post, which is Zohair Morad, is a 25-year-old atelier. And as you know, Beirut is like the Paris of Middle East. I mean, they have a lot of high element of style. But this particular brand and the entity and the person, individual, lost basically everything, all their archives, all the art, just about everything they had collected well, they, pretty much lost the complete history that they had in one go. And that can be very, very, it can break you totally. And as he wrote himself, Zuhair Murad, that I wept. He said, I just sat in front and I wept. Because he said it was all gone, suddenly, just gone. And I think I can only imagine how he must be feeling within. So yes, the post was done in support and in sort of this thing, because it's, we don't need we really don't need more surprises from 2020. I think it's done its sort of whatever this thing. But when it comes to what's happening with it in India, it's no different from the rest of the world. And I think to understand why this is happening, I am sure there's a deeper meaning to it. So yes, markets are changing and things are happening and people are in trouble, but one can't predict the future because all we know is the present. We have to live in this present moment. We have to be aware of this present moment and therefore make the most of this present moment. To sort of imagine or estimate what is going to happen in the years to come, I think it doesn't make much sense, at least not for me. Sure, all the market savvy guys will be at it and wondering what to do. But maybe it's a call out to all of us to slow down a bit, to, just kind of relook at our lives and stop running the race as frenetically as most of us had started to. So I think there has to be a silver lining to this whole thing by the end of it. And what it is, I think, is for all of us to see in time to come. But at this point of time, being present is the most important thing.
And how are you guys, are you making are there major changes in the way you worked before?
Oh, yeah, totally, absolutely. It's a new world. We don't see, everything is virtual. So here we are, I'm talking to you. I would much rather be talking to you in a lovely setting and, sipping some nice drinks and whatever, but we're not doing that. And therefore, this is the new way of the world, the virtual world. We have clients who call, we are on video calls through the day. Weddings, which is our main, yes, weddings, which are our main market, are still happening, but they're smaller, intimate affairs. So obviously, and nobody wants to come and shop. So they want to sort of see what they like, order, send their measurements. If at most they'll have some fittings happening. So there's a big change. There's a massive change. And that change, it's challenging, of course, because you're suddenly dealing with people without meeting the people, and considering that clothes are a lot about, how you feel when you're wearing them. Here we are purely going on the physical aspect of sort of this thing. So yes, that change is there. But having said that, I also know it's temporary and it's a matter of time before we will get out of it. Nothing is permanent. Everything passes, the good and the bad. You just can't, let's just say, rest on those times for that moment. So we just keep waiting and go with the flow.
Before we show this one very interesting question again, it is more than what is there again from artist Prem Singh, Principal Prem Singh. He says, how do you differentiate between ethnic identity and fashioned identity? And I think it's very important because the images that we're about to show to everyone is where you can see a lot of ethnicity. And it is ethnicity honored. How is it that you draw inspiration, and what is it, and how do you create these bridges between what is purely ethnic and rural and indigenous and aboriginal, if I may, to something that is also, you're giving it to people who are the elite, the modern, the people who are living 2 centuries ahead of times versus those who are living a couple of centuries behind time. India, the kind of, you're also allowing people to taste the roots in a way. How does it, how do you build these bridges and deal with them? How do you communicate with these two different worlds, the ethnic and the fashioned identity, as artist Prem Singh puts it?
Yes, so there are 2 things that I've mentioned before only, which will come back here. Number one, we are the royal nomads. This is by nature of us being nomads, we are constantly traveling. And when I mean travel, I don't mean physical only. I mean in our minds, in our dreams, in our thoughts. We're traveling and we're imbibing different cultures. So I'm definitely must have walked up and down the spice and the silk route several times in my head, just taking in whatever I can. And as opposed to that, I mean, so we put together, it's like a little sponge absorbing everything, putting it together in one place, and then start eliminating to come to that look for that season. We are creating for people. Our job is to create. We're a service. We're a service for mankind to feel better about themselves. And that's primarily what we do. Now, whether it involves ethnicity or doesn't is every designer's own outlook to a particular thing. As I said, I'm a maximalist and I'm a nomad. So you can imagine how much fun we're having. We're moving all the time. We're discovering new things. We're experimenting with new crafts and techniques. And then we are dressing up our people like royals. I mean, honestly, that's really what our forte is. And I just enjoy doing it and really want to stick to that.
Let's, you know, I was intrigued with the images that you sent, but not with the ones that you sent, all of them. There was one which was of your parents. And I want to start from there.
Sure.
And it is not every time that you get images, and then you have the first image that we have is of your parents. Tell me about them. And you mentioned about your mom and the boutique.
So I think I picked up the best traits. I'm sure every kid says this, but I'm pretty much sure I did. So my mother I've told you all about, but my father was extremely disciplined, a very honest man, and I think that sense of discipline we've imbibed from him. And it's that combination of seeing a creative soul in your family who's always embroidering and developing, and then a disciplined being. Together I picked up, you know, whatever traits I could and created the new me. So I think that's why I come back to the DNA part. And when I look at my children today, my daughters, I can see what's happening there as well. So I think that's really it. Today, I mean, I thank my parents. They're both no more, but I thank them profusely for letting me follow my dreams. Because had they stuck on to, you know, the thing that you have to become the accountant or the engineer or this thing, then, well, this era wouldn't have happened. So I think that's what a child really looks for when he's young. Does he have the support of his parents? And if he gets that, children normally blossom and they go to another level. You know, they just take things to another level. So really I couldn't have asked for a better childhood. And this little photograph is a memory of, you know, both of them.
I appreciate that. And you have the PDF with you, is it? The images, yeah. And this is you, the one that I remember.
Oh, yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, well, this was, you know.
What are you? Are you frightening this poor lady? Are you bullying her?
Not at all. I'm doing a makeup, if you can believe me.
I can't. I won't believe you.
This was my first photo shoot after I graduated, and obviously there was no money. So I was a makeup artist, the stylist, the designer, and the photographer.
And nobody bought anything.
And no. This was the second.
This is the second one. All right.
And this girl, she was a Miss India at that time, and she was a friend of mine. And I said, look, please do this for me. So she said, sure. And that's how really we got along. So this is a very endearing image because this was, you know, right when times were tough and you had to do everything and you enjoyed it thoroughly. And it's a rather young looking me, I mean, many years back. Wow, yeah.
And you seem to be enjoying what you're doing. You look like a master, maestro of makeup. You look like an actual serious makeup artist.
Yeah. I totally enjoyed it, and I still do, by the way. I don't do makeup now, but there are lots of things that I still photography, for example, I still indulge in. My daughter's a better stylist than me now, so she comes and plays that part.
I see.
So yeah, those things still happen. But as I said, the whole reason I took a sabbatical is because I had to start getting into this the way I really got into it in the first place. So 52 or 22, it's the same sentiment at this moment.
I see. And then I see. Where is this? Yeah.
The other images?
Yeah. The one
These
with the
are
belt,
all
yeah.
now from the show which I did, Tabriz, which was done in 2019 after
I see.
this is the post-sabbatical show.
I see.
And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And as you can see, it's all about grandeur. As I do not do clothes which are not grand. I do not do clothes which make people look extreme and feel extremely special, and basically, essentially, very happy. So that's really what my mission is. So I don't know where you are.
No, we are in the next image. If you have the PDF with you as well, will be great, because you can tell us about that particular image. The next one after the belt, the first one was with the sari with the belt, I guess.
Yes.
Is it something that we are seeing from what you mentioned about the one in Paris?
No, nothing at all. This is the new age. Usually evolving as a species.
Right.
The Indian species, the new Indian youngster is no longer what we used to be when we were younger. And it's a different ball game. So there's a whole lot of, experimentation happening with styling and with the way they want to wear Indian clothes. And wearing a sari, like a traditional sari, though it's still done, but young people prefer to wear it slightly more stylized. This was also an opportunity for us to introduce a special sort of belt. It's called the Phoenix belt, which is like a signature belt of the brand now. And we're going to be seeing much more of it. So, all these images, I could talk loads about them, but essentially they are just reflecting the ethos of the brand. And which is why I think generically, if you look at it, we're really talking about recreating modern royalty all over again and making it relevant to today's generation.
But I want you to talk about them.
Wow, that's a lot of talking. And
yes,
I mean, I don't know whether you
my ears are there, and the audience today and tomorrow is there. This is the chance. When do they see me and you chatting?
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you go to there's a gentleman's image wearing a black and white print turban.
The second one is the lady in that.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't. You see. Yeah. Okay. So we are like the royal nomad with a penchant for Art Deco. That's a particular period of history I'm very fond of, and therefore this outfit you'll see Art Deco elements. For example, the yoke that you see happening on the chest area are essentially motifs which are very which are reflective of the Art Deco period. So this is exactly what I do when I say contradictions. If you're talking about Art Deco mixing with Tabriz, which is essentially Persia, so you're talking about the Safavid Empire of Persia, blending in with the Art Deco period of Europe, and yet making in an Indian avatar. So, I mean, couldn't have asked for more contradictions than that, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So, yeah, so that's really how that goes. So the next image is a perennial, the Jamawar, which is something we've always loved. As a brand, it's become one of our strongest signatures. This particular Sherwani and its variations have been selling with us for over 15 years. The first avatar was 15 years back.
Wow. And
every year our clients want it in a new avatar. So this is kind of being reborn every year in its brand new avatar. So this is like its latest version. My dear friend who's a cricketer, Yuvraj, also got married in this.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so that's the next one is actually a sari worn by one of my oldest models. Now the funny part is this girl Noinika Chatterjee started her career the year I started my career. So she's been in the business for nearly 30 years now, and she still rules the ramp, which means she's in her 50s and she's still modeling. So I think, it's associations like this which make it so special, this little family that we've created. So
Brilliant.
The female version of the jamawar, as you can see, the jacket is still a jamawar, but now worn in its female avatar by one of my favorite girls. That way. The next is really, how it looks. How does the collection look? When we dream, when we think of collections, we don't think of one booty and one color and one motive. I visualize the entire show. It's going on in my head 8 months before it actually happens. I know exactly how it's looking. This visual that we captured at the show would have gone through my head 8 months back, and in pretty much great detail. So I think all creative people, such as yourself also, you have the ability to visualize. And I think that's one of the biggest gifts we've received from God, where you know your craft, but you can also visualize what it can be, and which people will then witness and they will experience and they will enjoy. But you've seen it before, you've conceived it. Yeah. Yes, you may be surprised when you actually deliver, but you've been able to sort of conceive it and implement it to the best of your ability. Next image is me in a turban. Well, no prizes for guessing that, with a host of brides, and that's what we are specialists in, getting girls and boys married.
Beautiful photo, yeah.
Yeah, married in beautiful clothes.
And is that energy? Again, I see the energy here.
Yes, absolutely. The next one is a shot at one of my favorite places in Bikaner. And, I have this whole, I think I've also got Rajasthani blood running in me because I was born in Jodhpur. So at that point of time, some kind of spirits must have come in and put in whatever, because there's a huge affinity I have with Rajasthan as well. So Bikaner, and this was part of our social media campaign that we shot in Bikaner. We continue with more men's clothes. Whilst everybody talks about women and their beautiful clothes, the men always get relegated to a basic sherwani or a kurta palo, te bas theek hai. Suit palo. Yeah. But times have changed. The peacocks have emerged, and most men today absolutely love to dress in fineries which probably compete with their soon-to-be better halves. So this is one such example of that. The next one in blue.
Oh, I see the one. I was still at the Bikaner thing. I see the gentleman.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. I see the groom now. Yeah. This is competition.
Yeah.
This is serious competition.
Absolutely.
I think now I know what the burqa is for. They can hide themselves. If this is how you dress the groom, that's my goodness.
It's a new age groom now. Yeah. There are, of course, the simpler grooms
and
also.
Of course, this blue dress now. Yes.
So the blue one, this is the signature color of our brand, a midnight blue, which we've actually had in our collections from the year I started my career. So I'm very emotional about this color. And yet it's got sensuality playing a lot because, well, women, they like to be sensual. I mean, they like beautiful, elegant clothes, but they're also women. So they want to kind of come across as beautiful women and all. So there's an element of sheer which we've put in here, whereby you can see, as you, aap kya keh rahe the, usko the night and the day, where you were referring to skin.
Yes.
Yes. So this is, you may want to consider this
music and silence.
Yes. The next image, the black and white dress. Are you there?
Yes.
So this pattern is called the Valaya shifting leaf chevron, and is one of our signature patterns, and now one of the most coveted ones.
This is fantastic.
It's just something that has hit home across for boys and girls, and it's something that has gone down very well. We've been using it for the past 10 years now.
I see.
And it's now become a DNA of the brand. So what happens with better brands is that along the way you start creating iconic pieces, which then become part of brand legacy. So when it goes down year after year, centuries after century, these silhouettes would always be very important ones. They could be prints, they could be silhouettes. So for example, this is one of our prints which is very popular. The next one, the green, is the sarpech reaches the chest. So the kalgi, as we call it in Sikh, this thing, but a sarpech in Rajasthani, this thing. We sort of embroidered it and recreated an otherwise very simple garment just to sort of shift focus and keep it elegant and simple. The same mood, color palette follows in the next image, but there's a lot of variation we've done with the style of the sleeves. Now, the one thing that's happened in fashion in India, and especially with younger people, is that they want to experiment without breaking too many boundaries. So they want the sari, but they want to have some fun with it. This is perhaps one of our best examples of it. We did a blouse, which if you go back, you go to the 60s and 70s, puff sleeve blouses were common.
I see.
But then we brought them forward and merged them into a new silhouette, plonked them with a net sari, put a belt over it, and suddenly it's hip and trendy. It's a lot of fun, actually.
This is amazing. You can just go and watch
After
it.
that
This
is
image,
yeah, these are all our bridals, and I mean these really. Now, since the inspiration was the Safavid dynasty of Persia, 16th century Persia, I can't show it here, but if you zoom in and see those round motifs and all, they are from a pearl carpet, which currently hangs in the Doha Islamic Museum. But that carpet was specially customized for the Safavids at that time and created, for the Maharajas, for the Shahs of Persia at that time.
Mm-hmm.
The next image is a clear image of the print I was talking about.
Yes.
This making its way everywhere. So whether it's garments or accessories or footwear or now our home line with furniture and everything, it's making its way there as well. The next image.
And in its sadgi bhi hai, sab kuch hai, and this uniqueness in this pattern.
Hanji. I'm just moving a little fast because we have 20 minutes left.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
what
Yeah.
sort of, yeah.
We'll continue that in we'll maybe in a couple of weeks, whenever we can sneak a couple of hours, we can continue. We don't have to rush to the second PDF. We can converse about this one this time.
Oh, I think we'll be able to do both.
Okay, all right.
So this is a very special show which was organized at Mehramgarh Fort in Jodhpur. Mm-hmm. And this was the first time we actually used an iconic structure as the backdrop. We didn't have to create one. Mm-hmm. And this was as a fundraiser for Babji's, which is Maharaja Gaj Singh's foundation. And as you can see, it's just another experience. It takes one to another level. And okay, the next image where I appear again. This image is my favorite finale show image. And the reason being that if you see the joy in my, this is Kangana Ranaut, and she's an Indian film actress, of course, but that happiness is genuine happiness. And there was a lot of, joy, and all the models around are very happy. It was one of our best-selling collections based on Turkey, and it was spectacular the way the show ended. The next one of Kabir and Dimple, another finale show that I did. Mm-hmm. And I thought of which unlikely pair can I get together who've never been together before. And these two actually have never done anything together.
I see.
Yeah, if you go back in time, you'll never find Kabir Bedi with Dimple Kabadia anywhere. There won't be a single film, nothing.
Unbelievable.
So we brought the two together, and my God, it worked amazingly. This, again, is a while back. I think it was, again, about 12 or 13 years back.
I see.
The next image is a dear friend of mine, Rahul Dev.
Yes,
who
of
we
course.
Dressed up as a Sikh. Yes, who we dressed up as a Sikh.
I was wondering what the guy is there. That's true. Without a turban, that's him. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is us experimenting. Prelude to Style and the Sikh, the initiative I was talking about.
Right.
So it's things like this which will appear. Mm-hmm. The next shot with me and a whole lot of lovely women. Mm-hmm. We have a signature jacket called the Alika, which is it's a statement jacket. And this was now the Alika project, all the jackets coming together in one frame.
I see.
So a top fashion magazine did this image. They made a big story and they arranged, this whole shoot and all. And it was a very powerful shoot, as you can see.
I can see the revolution and evolution there.
Yeah. balance is important.
Yeah.
Next image again from our newest collection, shot again at
Wow.
Bikaner. There's a lot I can talk about the clothes, but I feel it'll get repetitive. The next image is also a continuation of the same. The midnight blue color, as you can see, is playing its part,
Kya
and we clearly believe in it. It continues into menswear. I hope you're at the menswear image.
Going there.
Color going forward, Art Deco elements in play, touch of style with the pocket square, which I think is a must-have accessory for men of style, and they must experiment with it. And surprisingly, we're talking about an Indian silhouette here, which works beautifully with the pocket square, which is essentially a Western accessory. But anyways, same bridal outfit again, but shot differently. You'll see the same elements of the pearl carpet at the hem, but just one of my favorite shots, so I popped it in. Same collection continues.
Wow.
Bikaner being celebrated.
What a photo.
Along with our beautiful reds.
Did you have to nail her? Was she afraid that she's going to go down?
No, they're all quite fearless.
I see.
The next image is again part of the same collection. I think we are kind of being repetitive now in the.
No, but these are very good. It's very nice.
Yeah. So I've come to the one where the couple is standing, the male and female.
Yeah, we reached there too.
And
yes.
The salwar on men, which is generally people conceive it to be worn only with Pathan suits. We put it with a sherwani, and it's again been well accepted. So I think, as I said, men have started experimenting, and which is great news. The turban, the next image. Brilliant. The turban prints are ours, and that's part of the line of turbans we're developing for the new project as well. Here, of course, it's draped as a Rajasthani turban, but I wear it like a Sikh turban, and you've seen me wearing printed turbans. Right. So I think very elegant prints for Sikhs is going to be the way.
And this is a print?
Yes.
I see.
Signature print of ours. The color black in the next image. A perennial favorite. You can never go wrong with blacks, and shown here in various silhouettes, from a salwar to a anarkalis to a men's thing. In the next image, a Nehru jacket again, by far the coolest silhouette to be worn nowadays if you want to dress Indian. I lay a lot of emphasis on cufflinks, and I think that's where men should lay a lot of focus on, because you see, we have a limited choice in clothes, but when it comes to accessories, men tend to be boring often. So I think they need to be a little more experimental. So pocket squares, cufflinks, socks, buttons, all this should be given a lot more importance. I'm going to image, which is one of my favorite images.
This is amazing.
Yeah,
and I can see the belt as well in a different color though.
Where are you? No, you're on the next one. I jumped to the last one.
Oh, you did?
Yes. Yes, the belt is there in gold. But I went to the last one.
The couple?
No, after that.
Okay. You walked without waiting for me. That's you in the set.
Yes, so this image was taken by Vogue magazine, and it's one of my favorite portraits for many reasons. And I'm going to disregard the way I'm looking, but I'm talking more about the mood of the girl.
I would let you coax a compliment out.
I kind of ignore that. I get very embarrassed talking about myself. But the girl and the expression, it's amazing. And the movement, the flow. So, garments have a life of their own. And the wearer makes the garment, but the garment also makes the wearer. So it's a beautiful equation that happens between two sort of animate and inanimate coming together to create something magical. And so this image I particularly like because I like the movement of the hand, the garment, the fabric, the way she's looking, her expressions, everything is very beautiful. And it's all set in a very raw set-like format. It's not a finished set. It's like rough wood, and stands and boxes lying around. But it just was shot beautifully. Wow, that was a lot of talking. I don't think I've spoken that much about my clothes in a long time.
And now we have you behind the camera in the second series of images.
Yes,
this is doing that project you were mentioning about, the one that you dressed people up and took in contrasting circumstances.
Yes. So that is Lalaari, and that is why I was trying to. So I'm going to. So I have an interest in two kinds of photography, which is architectural as well as portraiture. And along with that, I do travel photography and what I call etc. Etc. is really where by default, I'm taking pictures all the time. It doesn't matter of what, of who, when, how, it's just pictures. And if you go back to Henri Cartier-Bresson, who was perhaps one of the most best known candid photographers of the world, he said that there were beautiful lines said by him, but he always said there's a spontaneity of that candid moment. You never know when it's going to appear. You have to be ready for it. It's unplanned. You may or may not be armed with a camera. And in today's times, you're all armed with cameras. But at that time, he used to carry around his little Leica all the time, waiting for the decisive moment. And if you go to his body of works, they are awe-inspiring. You actually see that how he's immortalized those moments. And to me, that is the most exciting part about photography, because poof, if you press the pause button, never to press play again. It's there and it's frozen. It is there for posterity. You know the joy we all get when we see old photographs? Each one of us, if we pull out old photographs, mom, dad, grandparents, we're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Or even our own pictures, if we pick up old ones, they're like, so the images have that power, which nothing else has. They have the power to preserve. They have the power to preserve memories, to immortalize them. And I think that is perhaps what attracts me to it the most. So when I go into my photography, I don't know whether I have the right PDF now, because is it the same one that you sent to me?
Yeah, PDF one, the one that,
so are we beginning with photography there?
Yes, you're there with you. You're still on the screen. We have you with the camera.
Okay. So, the first series is really all about architecture. And if you can see the first few forms, which is the white, beige, and blue, indigo blue kind of things up there.
Yeah.
Those were actually, I was invited for an artist in residence program at the Glenfiddich Distillery in Scotland. And this was one of their warehouses. And then I just walked around a warehouse and took images. And it was the geometry and the textures that attracted me in this. And as a series, it worked out beautifully. So, as I said, art exists everywhere. You just have to be alive enough to notice it. It just comes forward. If you see, some of the images have a lot of concrete in them.
Yeah, concrete is amazing. Is it what they're trying to, in a Punjabi je kahange ki gal cement diyan theliyan bacha rahe si?
So this cement is theliyan Kabuzier bacha rahe si Chandigarh. So this is all Chandigarh.
I see, our city.
Yes, and also my hometown, and I am particularly attached to it. And what Kabuzier has done with it is absolutely brilliant, and there was no way I wasn't going to capture it.
Right.
After that is the entire series. There's, of course, me with the camera, and it was also, I never realized that I shoot with both my eyes closed until I saw this picture. No, anyway. So all the other images that you see are portraiture based.
Right.
And essentially are from both my series, Decoded Paradox. And Decoded Paradox, and the other one was Lalaari. Decoded Paradox was a juxtaposition of present day Delhi and Delhi 600 years back.
And with the first image is the lady with the kangan and bracelets.
That's from Lalaari.
I see.
That's from Lalaari. So I promise you I had no idea such as this for you, but this whole series was about people expressing themselves as they thought they were and how the world saw them. So it's a very intense this thing, and there's a footnote on each image, which of course I can't, it's not here, but which would explain why this was done in a particular way. Every movement of the hand, the finger, the angle, everything had a meaning, and it was all spontaneous. I did not think of that sort of paragraph and then do the image. The image happened, and then I took out my words from that. Similarly, the next fellow, the Maharaja, sitting on a very high footstool. I mean, it's just the intrigue of the image. I had one of the top photographers of the country walk in, and he stood transfixed in front of that. He said, "This is by far one of the best portraits I've ever seen in my life." And I thought that was very kind of, it really warmed my heart. And I had Raghu Rai, I don't know if you know Raghu Rai.
Yeah. I've conversed with him in the series, yes, already.
Yeah, so Raghu came and saw the entire show, and he's brutally honest.
Yes.
He said, "Dekho, JJ, this is fantastic. This is going to another level. This show is like I prefer it over your architectural show." So he is very direct. And then we had this great conversation about, how everything fell into place. So next image is...
And I before we go there, I love the idea that there's a Maharaja, but chittar nahi hai, that guy has no shoes. And, that was very particular. I noted that too.
Rebellious Maharaja, because there's also a connotation of LGBTQ in this.
I see.
He's sort of, he wants to break free, and he's trying to get out of his fiefdom, literally. The next we can come to is the Pahalwan ka Akhada in Delhi. So a Maharaja plonked in the middle. Sometimes there's no reason to shoot images the way they're shot. They just have to create intrigue.
Yeah.
In fact, that I think is the most important thing. You can spend hours creating the perfect picture.
Yeah, and the guys you're not dressing up are the ones who are adding so much to it.
Absolutely. That just took it to the next level. So this is one of those rare photos which got a lot of interest from an international audience.
Right.
And most people who wanted this image came from Europe. So they were like, "This is amazing. It's something, it's unseen."
Right.
And then the other image in the stairs is Jantar Mantar.
Kya baat hai.
And this girl was sitting and combing, doing a makeup and hair, and this stray dog happened to come and plonk herself right at her feet. And I got the image.
Yeah.
So it's just the whole, I strongly believe that when you go to do something with your heart completely entrenched in creating something magnanimous, everything comes together to create that perfect moment for you. It's just there.
Yeah.
And there's no more proof than this than the next image, which was against the Jama Masjid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when we went to shoot here, it was pouring cats and dogs, and it was Bakra Eid. So this entire of millions of goats.
All these bakras in front are from that. Gosh.
And it was pouring. And I said, okay, this is it. We can't do this. I mean, that's impossible. The slush and the rain, we can't do the shot. I said this, and 5 minutes later, the rain stopped. We ran, set up. The clouds parted. A ray came on the dome of Jama Masjid. I took my shot, and it started raining again. It's almost that it was stopped precisely for that moment for me to make that image.
Amazing.
And it ended up being one of my strongest shots. So what was intriguing was 500 years back, only Shah Jahan walked on this path.
Yeah.
Nobody else.
Yeah.
And now you have this. And suddenly, and it was a staging happening in a real environment. So none of the people around knew what was going on. They were just wondering that, have we lost our brain? We have this whole, Nawab sitting in the middle of this thing. So anyway. Similarly, the next image, we were on the highway, went on to a dhaba, and the princess lands up in a dhaba with a lot of food in front, but she can't touch it. So it's all juxtapositions, contradictions, having fun, being bizarre, but being intriguing.
It reminds me of, Ustad Alabad Rahimuddin Khan Dagur was invited by the Birlas. And big dawat. The concert happened in 1970, 71 or something, the senior. And gold, silver plates, you know, and then Alawada Rahibuddin Khan of the Dagurbani is seated next to him, massive, you know, who's who, Kolkata. And the plates are brought, I don't know, 14, 15, 16 small katoris with one spoon of all the food that there is. And then there is one big katori with lots of medication. And then he turns towards it, he says, Khan Sahab, dekhiye, mera bhojan. So, this image actually reminds me of that contrast when you say the Maharani who sits in a dhaba, lots of food, but she cannot touch it.
Correct. So yeah, I think I'll stop here now because it's otherwise we couldn't go on for a little longer. But unfortunately, time is running out, and
you have to leave at 7. We can maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks. A couple of weeks later, we can finish. I'd love to. The images are brilliant. The ones that I have, I'd love to show that. Normally, my conversations are never 2 hours. By the way.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You are very bad. Not just sorry. You're very bad. You're officially certified as bad.
We can have another 1 hour session.
What do you mean 1 hour session? You don't give me time.
Oh.
I've spent more time on sorting your PDFs than what you've spent here.
Oh my God.
And I'm born, bred, irretrievably spoiled in Chandigarh. So you don't want to...
We are made both from the same
I tell you, there's going to be big Fauji, Army kid and Air Force kid fight. Yeah.
No, but it's amazing because I love your perspectives, the way you look at things and the metaphoric sort of play. And that makes it very, very interesting. So, maybe someday we should do something with music and fashion together.
Yeah. And you, of course, last year you made sure that I was not good enough for your project.
Well, I've told you the truth about that. That's also to be continued.
But maybe in a couple of weeks, let's. I think the photographs that there are very, very important.
I owe you this for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much, JJ. I appreciate that. And I knew that we have Gurbani tonight as the young Jatha from who are in Fresno in California. They're going to be joining at 10 in 3 hours time. So as I knew that you will be joining us for a couple of hours. And so I'll now soon begin to prepare for that Baiṭhak as well. But that you took time out and shared these beautiful images and also the video is very meaningful. And I think it'll be inspiring for the generations to come. People at large would inspire, would be very educative. These are master classes. The process of becoming a Vidwan, how you see things, why you do things. The purpose is that.
No, I think...
how do you touch a fabric, the thread, the color? Yeah. Please continue. Yes, you were saying.
I think the second session will be great we can talk about art and homes. Yes. And that'll be quite fantastic.
Yes.
No, we'll do this for sure. But I must thank you for this initiative and your effort and energy. My God, you've put in, this is the 113th episode. That is truly commendable. So I think you'll have probably one of the most enviable banks of interludes ever to be possessed by anybody. So many congratulations.
Thanks to achievers like you.
Thank you for having me. I will definitely rejoin you very shortly.
Yes.
For sure. Right?
All the best and welcome. Yeah, bye. So friends, that was my conversation with designer and artist JJ Valaya. I know many of you have written questions. I knew that he has an appointment which he could not avoid today, and then he had to sort of attend to. And the reason I was not taking many of her questions, and that's what happened. I took a few, but then that's what happened. We could not show you the whole. I think we missed about 30 odd images yet that we had to show. And they're very interesting images. I'm glad, of course, he has kindly agreed to spend some time with us in the near future. At 10 o'clock tonight, I would like to share with you that Bhai Baldeep Singh and his brothers would be joining from Fresno in California. And a very promising young Jatha. And I hope that you will mark your calendar and join us when we speak with them, when I speak with them and listen to their work. They, of course, began studying from their father, Sardar Anup Singh, at a very young age. And then Baldeep, the younger, I think he's the second eldest of the four brothers, the main vocalist. He was then sent to his father's teacher, Master Chaman Lal, to further his education, and then he went on to study with Master Darshan Singh of Batala, and then Master Darshan Singh's teacher, Pandit Vishwamitra. They originally performed classical music, but then they were initiated into the singing of Gurbani, and they began their Ragi Jatha. And they've served at multiple places, including Saket Mandi, after they sang Gurbani at their village Gurudwara for about 6 years. They were in Saket, Mandi, then Panipat, and Kurukshetra for 6 years in Pipli, and then Rajpura. They've traveled quite a lot around the world. So I hope that you will be able to join us today. Dosto, आज शामी तुसी मेहरबानी होएगी तुसी मार्क कर लियो 9:30 बजे कैलिफोर्निया ਦਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੈਗਾ 10 ਵਜੇ ਸ਼ਾਮੀ ਅੱਜ ਰਾਤਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ 3 ਘੰਟਿਆਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਅਸੀਂ ਭਾਈ ਹਰਬਲਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੋਣਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜਾਂਗੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਵੀ ਸੁਣਾਂਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਕੀ ਹੈ ਆਪਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਜਾਣਾਂਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉਸਤਾਦਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀ ਸਿਖਾਇਆ ਆਪ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਰਚਨਾਵਾਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਇਹ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਦੇਖਾਂਗੇ 10 ਵਜੇ ਰਾਤੀ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਔਰ 9:30 ਵਜੇ California time haga. I hope that you will be able to take time out. To you all, Kalinath Mishra ji is here, Tejinder Kaur, professor from Ludhiana, and Raman, of course, have mentioned her. Thank you so much. And I agree that this is one of the most important. I see you mentioning, yes, she's, speaking to JJ, and I appreciate that. She's mentioning that this is one of the most important archives of the artist's process created by yours truly and the one and only Bhai Baldeep Singh. A series of great value for generations to come, yes. And then Preeti Sarna, I know that you had a couple of questions, but I'm sorry, I knew that the time's running out, and I wanted him to spend time on images, but then Hayama mein rehna saka, like I just couldn't resist asking him a few questions, and then my own, so my apologies that I was not able to get, but I'm glad that you liked, and I'm gonna request Anjali Kalia, who's a very dear friend, and Rita Kapoor Chishti, who's done such extraordinary work on saris over the years. People have, I've known, for years and years now. And, every one of you who joined, and I'm sure that we'll have a chance. Your questions there, you can write down if you want, JJ to respond, or others that you may want within the fashion industry. My conversations, I don't know if I'm the right person even to converse with many of these maestros. I do bring in a perspective, yes, but then I'm not going into the threads, what thread you use, whether you use a single ply, 2-ply, 3-ply. That's, maybe others can also ask them the questions. And I appreciated that Valaya was, I enjoyed the conversation, that there was certain questions and perspectives that, of course, do not get asked. But when often do you get an interdisciplinary convergence of sorts, where thinkers of one particular, as I was meeting Shudip Sen yesterday, and a wonderful, well, I didn't like the tea, by the way. It was okay, that dip thing. I like that brew thing, but those shingaras, the samosas were just out of the world. And I would go to his house again and again. And thanks, Raman, for that introduction, by the way. But then I told him that I do write poetry, but I'm not a poet, because I know what it is to be what I am. I had to undergo a painstaking process to be able to, like restored and brought back to life Alania in Rag Vadhans of Gurū Nānak, and then a second one in Vadhans Dakhni. And Vadhans Dakhni is very unique. It doesn't. It is so close to make, but to keep away, it is. It does something else. For example, it goes. See, it's not Meg. Baji hai ye ho sansaro Nanak kisno Baba roiya Baji hai ye ho sansaro Baji hai ye ho samsaro Kitave kai Sahib apna Ji Sahib apna Kitave kai Sahib Anād. So this, for example, the reconstruction that I was able to do. It doesn't happen just like that, As I think, who was mentioning to me that why didn't I do it before? I think maybe it was Raman or somebody, but it didn't happen before. It happened now. So I'm what I am, who can also write poetry, but I haven't done those many miles studying poetry. But I can still come up with a poetic expression. Like I ended up writing something to Shudip the other day, talking of the idea of the books, for example, and what is it? I mean, what does it take to buy a book? But then that is not enough. And I'm sharing this. As I wrote in Hindi, what would be Hindi or whatever it is, कि खरीदने में क्या है? खरीदने में क्या है? सिर्फ पैसे लगते हैं. दिक्कत किताब पढ़ने में है. खरीदने में क्या लगता है? सिर्फ पैसे लगते हैं. दिक्कत किताब पढ़ने में है. समा लगता है. समा बंदे के पास वो है जो गुजर चुका, यादस्तानों में दफन हो चुका. काश कि बीते समय को बरत कर मैं कोई किताब पढ़ सकता. पढ़ने के लिए वो समा लगे है जो खीसे में है ही नहीं. आने वाला समा तो बंदे की नाजुक सांसों की डोरी से पिरोया होता है. आने वाला समा, आने वाला समा तो बंदे की नाजुक सांसों की डोरी से पिरोया होता है, और डोरी की लंबाई का कम से कम मुझे तो नहीं पता। डोरी की लंबाई का कम से कम मुझे तो पता नहीं। किसी कहानी से या छंद पदे कविता से वादा कर कैसे सुहाग चढ़ाऊंगा कि तुम्हें पढ़ूंगा, कि तुम्हें पढ़ूंगा, मजा आया तो बार बार पढ़ूंगा। किसी अक्षर से कि तुम में लंबी डुबकी लगाऊंगा, गोते खूब खाऊंगा, तुम्हारी हर तह तलक जाऊंगा, तुम्हारे हर भाव से यारी डाल निभाऊंगा। तो वादा टूटने का डर है, मगर किसी लेखक से नहीं, शायद लिखे से। पर जब अब सोच ही रहा हूं तो लिखे से भी नहीं, शायद लिख सकने की काबिलियत से है, या लिखे की पढ़कर समझ सकने की ताकत से। नहीं नहीं, अमल, अमल, वो अमल जिसे गुरु नानक कहते हैं कि शुभ अमला बाजों दो में रोए। So what does it take, what does it take, as as I wrote to him, to Shudip, that what does it take to buy one, what does it take to read one, a book? In reading, one is compelled to fathom all it took to write a word, a line, a poem, a story, a novel, a scripture. So I cannot be a Valaya, because I will not spend my 40 years or 30 years in doing what he did. And I know the passion that he has, the passion, for example, Siddharth has, the passion for his field that artist Prem Singh has, artist Paramjeet, Raman has, Neelam Mansingh's, Ratan Thiam's. They can't spend how I have spent, and I cannot do what they did. The only place for me to know about them is, for example, a platform like this, in which I converse and I try to get into their bodies and see the world how they see it. I try to touch a note how they've touched it. I try to hold the pen, that a poet holds, a Dr. Surjit Patar, Anamika or Mamta Sagar, or a brush. I just try to enter the bodies of elders like Prem Singh, Siddharth, and see if I can touch a color like they do, hold a brush like they do, tighten the canvas on a frame like they do, look at a blank page like they do, and then fill it like they do. This is my only chance, my last hope, I guess. So these conversations, yes, have, now they say maybe they have become larger, but then when I start with a maestro called Luigi Polsini, as I said the other day in conversation with Bandeep, it was always meant to be like that, because I wanted to, because I know the value of my time. And long time ago, when I used to be a typical, in my avatar as a Fauji kid playing in the, offices in squash, there was a single rule, a simple rule that was told to us by the elders, all these ace pilots, who would be flying all day, and they would want to, get us youngsters who were very, very good players to make them sweat. And we learned very early on that if you really want to become good, never partner with someone who doesn't play as good as you. That you should try to play with those who are better than you, is how you will improve your game. So I'm conversing with those whom I deem as better than I am. And in conversation, maybe I'll get inspired. And when I get inspired, I'm hopeful that even you will get inspired. And these conversations are therefore with a select. One that I would love to interview everybody. You know, when I was visiting Ape Gaon in Maharashtra, I was 26 or 7. And on that day when I went into the fields just looking for Pandit Shankar, Padma Shri awardee Pandit Shankar or Shindevu Ape Gaonkar, in the next village I just said, oh, the village is just 4 or 5 miles, and I just walk. While walking back, I saw an old man, and I was not carrying my F4, Nikon F4. It was in the house in Apegaon. And I thought it's going to be uneventful. But then I saw one of the best images that I could never shoot. An old man with the wrinkles like I've never seen in any photo. I've seen many wrinkled people photographed. But that was extraordinary. I've not seen one image that has reminded me of the beauty I saw in that old man. Must have been 90 plus, sitting on the path, Kacha road from which connects a village with another, a satellite villages. He's sitting down with a lungi and a simple kurta it was a heat, very hot day, looking up into the sky. And it was as if I saw time frozen, is what I saw. Frozen time. He did not care hoots who I was. I mean, a stranger, a Sardar from alien lands of Punjab. He did not even look at me from when I was far away. 200 meters, 100 meters. Usually when somebody is walking, we immediately look and fathom, do I have the path for the person to walk, who the person is coming. We have a tendency, we see any movement, we go. When my young Mahant Gurdev Singh, young Jathedar, was teaching me sword fighting and all that, we were sitting in a jungle. Now it has been overtaken by Mohali in Chandigarh. He's tying a turban. And in the fields far away, the birds spoke. And for us, it was just another birds. But he, as a warrior, he looked immediately, like tying the turban, he says, snake, sap. And then he said, oh, Baldeep, he used that voice like that. Oh, Baldeep, le jaake, sap mere liye leke aao. He says, go, fetch me that snake. And he gave me his staff, he picked it up and he threw at me. Me, an aviator, a squash player who could play 5 hours, who would give love games to former Air Force and Army and Navy champions. I ran and all of his dogs came. They were all hunting dogs. And Siha was the she-dog ahead of the pack. She was a queen. She had those lines, and I saw the value of a hunting dog. She knew I was on a hunt. As I ran, and believe you me, I ran well. And I had no idea. The maestro says, get me the snake, throw the staff, happens in like 2 seconds. And I'm off, barefoot, running through those fields which had been harvested. There's sharp, but I'm managing anyway. Who thought? When you train. Running, and then the snakes were my guide sometimes. I was their guide, and I saw a long snake. And moments later, we were adjacent. The snake was here and I was running here, keeping pace. And then I saw in that I had to manage the rhythm. I planned the strike, And by the time it fell, the snake was a meter ahead. And that little slow down of the pace in my stride, when I hit, I'm slowing down, the snake went ahead of me. So I sprinted further, I caught up with it. This time, I had hit on the middle of the snake and the center, thinking that I'll strike the belly or the middle, and I was a meter back. So I hit on the head, and then I missed the snake by a whisker. It was a long snake. I think 12 or 13 feet we measured it. And then the third time, I said, okay, this is happening in split seconds. I caught up again with the snake. It's now going through desperate zigzagging, and the snakes, we are rolling one way. And I go a little ahead and I strike. The moment my staff comes, the snake vanishes. There was a hole, it went in. So I said, gosh. And as I stopped, put the staff on my heads, on my shoulder, and I like this, and I was walking back, and my Mahant Gurūdev Singh was laughing, ha ha ha. Oh, these city boys will learn how to hunt. These city boys will learn the art of sword fighting. Oh, they want to be warriors. Ha ha ha. I said, bloody hell. He's gonna, smear me for the rest of my life. But I was walking maybe 50 meters back. I walked towards him, my walk of shame. And then Siha barked. So I had heard my master react to the birds, and this time I could recognize the birds, and Siha barked. And where she looked, I followed. We began running. And then that was now the third strike. And I was running to the head of the snake, and I anticipated the movement, and I struck. And I struck in the middle of the snake. When I hit, a meter and a half or so ahead was the strike when I landed. Bang, bang on the middle of the snake. Pardon me, animal lovers. It was business. It was not personal. And the strike was hard. It was a good strike, but not enough to kill. Siha, the moment it stopped the snake, Siha held it and pultified it, folded the snake up and through. Of course, I killed very quickly the snake's head, put it on the rope, on the staff, and I placed the snake. I said, maestro, your snake. So point I'm making is that it's a field anyway. Whatever the reason I told the story, I don't care. I don't want to go back. I'm remembering elders. But the purpose is that the series here was destined because it was an attempt to converse with people whom I've admired, and I'm learning, I'm meeting new people, and I hope that the conversations will be enjoyed by you all, and that an important benefit will be people will harvest something from them. So my attempt is to enrich myself, and enriching myself, I'm sure you will be enriched. I take leave now, prepare for Harbaljeet's conversation tonight. Lots of love to you, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Khuda Hafiz, Sat Kartar, Varji Ka Khalsa, Varji Ka Fateh, Namaskar, and see you at 10 p.m. tonight.